Wonderful. Chris.
What up?
Oh my goodness.
How you?
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me?
That was lit, right?
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Incredible. I mean, I had my literal flowers for her. I mean, come on. She needs them. She deserves them. If I could send them to you, I would. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos was amazing, right?
Yeah, like he's just such a beautiful human being. And he operates with such grace, man. Whenever I think of Los, I think about this one play when Shaq comes down the floor and he decides he's not going to be a center. He's going to be a point guard in this play and dribbles through the crowd and laces up and passes to Kobe. And Los is like the big dude with the nimbleness and spirit and heart of Shaq on that play. It was beautiful.
I really appreciate it. And now this is the after party.
Yay! Let's get it.
I want to say, in the spirit of your work as well, maybe we shouldn't be calling this an after party. This is really a cipher.
I love that.
This is a conversation, right? This is a conversation, and it's a conversation about a conversation. Mm-hmm. In true big picture fashion, we like to invite some folks into the room because we see our work as activists. I wore my T-shirt for that reason. We are activists. And so we want to activate some conversations, and hopefully outside of this moment, people will continue to have a conversation about the importance of this work. So we're inviting Naseem and Sofia into the room.
Nas. What up, Sofia?
Right? And y'all can take yourself off mute. And we only have a little bit of time, right? And I love how y'all are representing. So we only have a little bit of time, and we're going to do this in true cipher fashion where it's a conversation. It's going to go where it's going to go. It's going to emerge, and we're going to let it happen. That's the real way learning happens anyway, right? Take a minute to introduce yourself. Tell us maybe how you're affiliated with Big Picture Learning, obviously your name, and then what's the latest thing you're up to? And Chris, we should engage as well. So
I just want to start off by saying, like, you threw your shirt on, so I got a rep and throw on my Amplify shirt. Amplify is a sponsor and supporter of this event, and our work is about amplifying the voices of these brilliant young folks. So, Nas and Sofia, we just want to hear. I just want to hear what did you guys glean from that conversation? Like, what stuck out to you guys the most?
I got goosebumps. Like, so many powerful words that Nicole shared. And I think what came to mind was that we live in a nation of broken promises, right?
Yeah.
And the main quote that stood out to me is the dream for us to live up to our most majestic, purest, and promising ideals, to live up to the image that we have of who we are. And I don't think we've gotten there yet. And we hear a lot of history repeating itself, right? Mm-hmm. Like this concept of like history repeating itself. And I think we've become comfortable with history repeating itself. Mm-hmm. And that means that we aren't learning and growing. So we no longer must be complacent and comfortable with allowing history to repeat itself. But we have to grow. We have to educate, right? Because as Nicole said, education is the path to liberation. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I love that so much. And like, I love the idea of like, there must be an interruption of repetition. Like repetition just means like, because the more you repeat something, the more you perfect it. So if there's a repetition of oppression, then we perfect the oppression. And the only way that we interrupt that is by facing it and then being deliberate about truncating it. So like Nas, those are God level Nas bars. You know what I'm saying? Like your namesake,
right?
Naseem or Nasir, that was heavy. Yo, Sofia, what are your thoughts? Like what stuck out to you and what's on your heart right now?
Well, really, what stuck with me was talking about her upbringing in the education system and how she was looked down upon a lot. Because I really feel I know what it feels like to be the one Black kid in a white classroom. I knew what that was like growing up. Growing up, I went to a predominantly white elementary and middle school. And it just took me back to like looking around myself, seeing maybe one or two other Black or brown kids in my class, took me back to when my white classmates would comment on my hairstyles when I was little and not really having somebody I could relate to. So I really felt that. And her quote about saying, there's nothing about sitting next to white kids in a class that makes a Black child smart. And that really stuck with me because that doesn't define the fact that I'm in a classroom with a bunch of other white children doesn't mean that I'm smart. You know, and it's crazy how we really, like you said, we've let it be boiled down to that where it's like, well, they're super smart since they're sitting up there with the white kids. That's not where the bar should be. You know, there are so many smart, educated, beautiful Black children out there, and we're just not showing them, and we're not spotlighting those children. So for her to really speak up on that part and feeling like she was the only one a lot of the time really stuck with me. And plus, it feels like fuel a little bit, you know, because you're like, no, you don't want any other Black kid to feel like that. You want everybody to feel celebrated and welcomed in their own classroom. So it sort of felt like, sort of lit a fire into me. And I was like, let's not let that happen anymore. I don't want any other kids after me to feel the same way I felt and how she felt coming up.
Oh my gosh, you two are something. And like, you know, Sofia, what you're making me think of is, because, you know, is this concept of imposter syndrome, of course. And imposter syndrome is bred from youth. It doesn't begin when the 14-year-old or 19-year-old or 24-year-old can articulate it and stumbles upon the term. Imposter syndrome begins in situations where young folks feel as though they're the anomaly, and because they're the anomaly, they're not centered. And it's like the centering of Black voices. And you know, what you said is so brilliant beyond your years. So I just want to let me just take a time out first and just say, yo, you know, your analysis of the conditions of your own previous experiences, your ability to be able to be now reflecting back on that deeply speaks to the level of genius that you hold that no one around you can even offer. So like, shout to you on that. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, it also made me think of first, Sofia, your vulnerability to share that, and echoed by, or, you know, previous to your comment, you know, Nicole's vulnerability to share her story. And I think even being able to share the fact that she was failing at one point, you know, in college. And we in this country, I think there's a desire to show perfectionism, right? And it bleeds into social media and everything else. So to be vulnerable enough to speak that truth is part of the journey. It also, in that moment when she was sharing that, she talked about a single adult who showed her grace, and how that transformed her opportunity. And she was hoping she could pay it forward, or at least that person knows where she is. I wonder if we want to think about some of those people and how that shows up in our worlds and our experiences, even in our education, and how we've grown from a single adult doing something for us.
Man, sis, yo, that's so fine. I'm gonna say something and I'm gonna show it to the kids. I think like Black existence in America is the exemplification of grace, right? The fact that we persistently choose to hold this nation up to its ideals is saying that I'm not canceling you as a country. I will hold you accountable in spite of how you attempt to silence me. And so like Black America offers grace consistently, and that collective, like sort of like national grace is the same thing that we extend individually. But yo, but I had to say that, Eunice, because
that's real.
Yo, Sofia and Naseem, like, let's talk through that grace process. So who in your lives have extended that to you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, like India said earlier, my mother, I grew up in a house of educators. You know, my aunts are educators. My father he's a former educator. So like, you know, I grew up in a house of, you know, people who've just been in the education system. So it's always been like a conversation in my house. And honestly, I think most of that grace came from my family growing up, and having people who weren't afraid to like call me out when I was slipping a little bit. Because I've had plenty of talks with, especially my mother, like when I've been sat down and been like, you're not being the best I know you can be, and that's not going to cut it. And I know it's not. And I've had those heart-to-hearts, and like in the moment, you don't want to hear them. You really don't, because you're like, oh no, I'm fine. I don't need to be told all this. But like, you really think back on it and you're like, I needed to be told that in the moment. And it's crazy to me that not enough students are being told this. Not enough students have a teacher who cares enough to tell them that. So for my final year of middle school, for 8th grade, I went to a very traditional middle school. And that was a time for me to really look back and see how many teachers don't care about their students that way, and how many students are missing out on that connection with their students. My social studies teacher on the last day of classes, he was talking to the whole class for our last meeting, and he was saying, hey guys, I have a yearbook on my desk, and you can go sign it if you want, because let's be real, I'm not going to remember your names when this is all over. And it really, like, when I stepped out of the room, I was like, I don't blame him. He's teaching 125 kids each year, and it's almost like a factory. And he just has to file them through and grade their work and move us on to the next level. I always compare schools to farmhouses, kind of. We're the chickens, we're the cows, and they're the farmers, and they're trying to fatten us up for the slaughterhouse. And college is the slaughterhouse. They don't want to get to know us. They don't want to know our names. They don't want to know our stories. They just want to fatten us up and get us out because that's their job. And it just really sits with me, and like it's what drives me to like more students need to have that. What Big Picture is providing for us, like those teachers, those mentors who are sitting down with us and actually getting to know us, giving us those heart-to-hearts, like I mentioned. But yeah, I'm so thankful that I've grown up with people who have given me that grace. But like it really is crazy to sit back and look at how many students aren't being given that grace.
Yo, hey yo, you said this one joint, like this bar that I think is important for folks to know.
Call it out.
The height of love is high expectations. If I love you, I hold you up to an ideal that is bigger than the circumstances you're in. There's a misperception that love is allowing you to get away with. Like, love is not what you can get away with. Love is holding you up to a version of yourself that's bigger than you. And I think, again, your sage wisdom, the recognition that talking to in that moment that you didn't want to hear is actually the performance of love, right? Like it's love and action is high expectations. And that you can recognize that early is magic. Nas, what's your great story, bro?
I think what Nicole brought up in the conversation is her feeling like she had to prove herself, right? And feeling like I can do it. And I think when we connect with mentors and leaders that actually care, we don't have to prove ourselves. They see something in us that we don't see in ourselves and give us a chance and invest and nurture us and care for us and give us advice and put us in the position to be excellent, to be great. And I don't want to focus on one person, right? As a mentor or as somebody that showed me grace, because the list is so long and I don't want to miss anyone. It takes a village, and I got a strong village behind me, and I just hope every day that I'm making them proud. And I have a contact list that I could call and say, I'm having a bad day. I didn't get into the law school that I applied to. Can I speak to you? And could you give me advice? And it's the mentors and the leaders, right? Saying that you're more than a number. You're more than a test grade. You're going through X, Y, and Z. You're burning yourself out. Take a break. Take a self-care day. And as educators and as leaders, we have to make sure that we invest in that time and giving all students grace, not just the ones that we think are the exceptional ones. Right? The ones that we think are going to make it. Everybody deserves grace. Not just the ones that is like, all right, you're doing good in class.
Right.
We're going to give you grace today and forget about everybody else. Nah, everybody in the classroom deserves grace. Everybody deserves a shot, and everybody deserves the resources.
That is so beautiful. Wow.
Yo, can I say something real quick to that? Because I think it's a really powerful dialectic, and Nicole modeled that so wonderfully. The first thing is the recognition that everybody deserves grace, like Naseem said so powerfully. We also must understand that grace cannot be extended without a recognition of the need for radical vulnerability. I think we exist in a world where we're shaping people to this ideal of perfection.
Right.
And so folks get silenced by the perception that they need perfection. Let me say that again. You get silenced by the perception that you have to show up with perfection. So because of that, no one knows the moments when you need the grace extended.
Right.
And so grace cannot be fully extended until we embrace the concept of radical vulnerability. When Nicole said, yo, and I was having a bad year, I didn't go to class. Or I was, like that requires a certain honesty with self to recognize that I don't gotta be perfect.
Right.
When you're honest with your imperfections or the perceived imperfections is when somebody can pour into you to fill those gaps. So grace requires radical vulnerability, and vulnerability is what activates the grace in the person that loves you.
That's beautiful. Can I just add, I want to tag onto that, her description of that mentor, that she had been giving people works that was from a classroom, and asking them to think of her in the role of journalism in their spaces, for an internship, whatever. And their reaction, she doesn't even know what it was. It wasn't a real relationship. It wasn't vulnerability. These were people just kind of nodding their heads and passing her by, really. But it wasn't until someone who was ready to have a real conversation. So Naseem, you were making me think about that, and you too, Sofia, that it's the real conversation. It's the real relationship that affords you the opportunity to have some conversations, but we don't take the time to set that up often in schools or other spaces. So that list of mentors that you have, Naseem, it's a lot of time invested too, so that these people know you and they know your moments and they know how to respond. And unfortunately, we do a lot of fake stuff in schools, right? We do a lot of, and in spaces in general, we fake it. We fake it and we fake it. And there's that saying, you fake it until you make it, but that doesn't get people very far, right? And I think I hate that saying. I know, it's just dumb.
Nah, I don't fake it till I make it. I keep it a buck. That's what allows you to make it. It's your authenticity that's the part that gets you to where you need to go. But Eunice, you never shared your story about the extension of grace. I want to hear from you.
Ooh, I think it's my entire life is an extension of grace. I think I'll tell a funny story. Wow, I can't tell this funny story in front of all these people, but I have found myself in wonderful spaces all the time where I didn't think I had the chops, whatever that means, didn't have the credentials, whatever. And as a matter of fact, before I started a big picture school in Newark, New Jersey, I wasn't even fully aware that was what the interview was taking me to. It was, a founding school, founding team. And I stepped up because it felt right, right? The words and the language spoke to me. It was my heart work to know that we would create a space where kids would be able to be free and liberated and do what their hearts called for. And but I hadn't had my principal credentials at that point. So I stepped up, and then literally in the interview, y'all, when I realized it, I was just like, oh, come on. But I went through, and I think the whole process, people offered me grace, and maybe they saw, again, something in me. And these weren't even folks that I really had real relationships with at the time. But I'll shout out Miss Bess and Charlie Adler for seeing something that made them think it was a good fit. But that's just one. There's many. We can go on and on.
Yo,
did you give us yours, Chris?
Did I? I don't know if I did.
Go ahead, Chris. Get in this thing.
You know what? I have to bite off my man Nas, man. Like I get extended grace on a regular basis. Because I make mistakes all the time.
Absolutely.
And one thing I'll say is that like I've learned to not be ashamed of my mistakes. And I've learned, here's the thing about grace too. I've learned to extend my grace to myself when I've made mistakes. Sometimes the most paralyzing thing is when you don't forgive yourself for your past mistakes. And no matter what people offer you and say, oh, it's all right, if you don't forgive you. And so, I think that self-grace and self-love is the most important. So, look, I got stories. Listen, my significant other forgave me yesterday. You know what I mean? Like,
all day we got those stories.
But I always want to be better. I think it's like grace and then the desire to be better.
Right.
So, I want to turn this back to Naseem and Sofia. Okay. Because y'all, let me say this. I'm going to prophesy on y'all real quick, if I may.
Go for it.
That this is just my work. Shout out to my brother Tim Jones, a fellow preacher, pedagogue. You too will make such impact in the world by function of just your presence. You too do not know the extent to which your futures will guide new futures. Like you too are gifts and gems and wormholes to new dimensions of power. I don't want you to say anything back to what I just said. Just bathe in it. All right? Now we'll get to the question. Where do you see yourself? You see Nicole's arc, her journey from the struggling kid to this, Peabody winner. I want you to radically imagine you 20 years from now, given what you've learned and what you've experienced. Say out loud who you are, what you want to be. Dream out loud with us.
Woo, I mean, that's a hard one. I'm gonna be for real. That one's because it's so much to think about, and this past year has been a time to think. Let's be real. Everybody's been thinking this past year. You have so much time to yourself to really just think back on, where you want to be, your past and all that. And, just thinking like, I know that when I grow up, I want to go into the film industry when I'm older. I'm an aspiring Black filmmaker. I want to tell the stories of Black people and Black youth. And, you know, having these mentors and like having that time to think to myself, it's only like added fuel to the fire. You know, I'm taking film community college classes right now. You know, I'm taking film history. I'm learning how to write my own scripts right now. And like just having people in my corner of the ring saying like, I know you can do this. You know, what support do you need from me? What can I do to help get you there? Has really just, you know, pushed me further. And it really did convince me like I can do what I want to do. Because I've been wanting to do this since middle school, but I was always second guessing myself. Like, can I do this? I don't know where to start. But like having somebody take that first step with me and just guide me along the way has just helped me so much. So all I see, you know, in my future is going to film school, getting it done. You know, my older sister, she's an aspiring director, you know, sitting down with her, meeting other aspiring Black filmmakers and like making this happen. Because, you know, something that I preach a lot, there's so many types of Black people in the world. We just aren't showing them. There's so many different stories. Black people come in all shapes, sizes, personalities. Like there are so many beautiful Black bodies in the world. And I don't think the entertainment industry shows them enough. And that's really like my mission statement almost. Like, you know, I'm trying to, right now I'm a sponge. I'm soaking in all the information. You know, I'm learning what I can. So when I have those tools and when I'm ready and somebody's ready for me to come work with them, like I'm going to hit the ground running and I'm going to hopefully change our world for the better because I feel like everybody deserves to hear those stories.
So I'm gonna say one thing because that was so powerful. Sofia, you're not an aspiring filmmaker or not an aspiring director. You are a director. The mindset is essential. You're just pursuing the credential, right? So you got the mindset there. So you never say you're aspiring to. You claim what you are. You're just in pursuit of the credential, right? Because the mindset's already there. You already got the essential. You're in pursuit of the credential. All right. Sorry, I got to put a little OG-ness on there. I can't help you. I'm old, man. Right. You know what I'm saying? When the grades start coming in, I got to share with the youngins. Now, do you see yourself, Maji?
So, I want to be an attorney, right? And I'm currently I just finished submitting all of my applications for law school, right? And I've been frustrated. I've been angry, because of the LSAT. Right? And I think you can understand where I'm going with this, right? Let's call the LSAT for what it is. Let's call out standardized exams and standardized testing for what it is.
That's right.
Our students are more than grades and aptitude tests for they're being graded and being given scholarship money for like 2 hours in a day. Like 2 points on an exam is determined whether a student gets accepted to a top 10, top 20 law school in the country. And then you're just denying a whole bunch of other students and saying they're not good enough. So what I want to do is get rid of the LSAT. Let's get rid of standardized exams. Let's create a new system. Education is in need of reform. Let's learn from the history and not allow history to continue to repeat itself. So it's about opening the door, creating a new system, and radicalizing education and creating a new form of education with collaboration of all different students, educators around the nation to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to do whatever they want to do and they aren't being blocked by an exam.
I love it.
So that's my dream, right? Let's get rid of all the exams. And even though I want to be an attorney, I'm more focused on getting rid of exams and education reform. Let's change it.
Really quick, I just want to, first of all, I felt that to my bones. Like I could just feel the passion through the screen because I couldn't agree more. Like our education system boils our kids down to numbers way too much. You look at them as a number on a piece of paper. We decide what they're worth, which is just insane. College admission, they sit down and be like, oh, that number is not high enough for me, so they're not worthy of a good education, which is just insane. So I just wanted to shout that out because I just felt that to my core. That was beautiful.
Yo, and what you two have, I think is great. Like, I love that you use the idea of like the exams dwindle down and identify your worth. Like worth in a financial system is about the accumulation of wealth. Knowledge of self is the ultimate wealth. Like this, once you know who you are and who you want to be, what you want to be and how you want to be in the world, then worth has been determined. Like the game is over once you know what you want to do. Now it's just walking into what you want to be. And I love, Sofia, how you, saw Nas's passion, felt it in your bones, and then were able to connect that to policy. What you guys are doing right now is you're literally having a policy conversation. Like you're having the kind of conversation that should be happening in DC.
Right.
The Biden administration needs to be tapping your expertise to figure out what the next steps are. You know what I mean? Like, and so like it's because it's about practical work. Then it's about how does a policy shift to match the practice so that you can allow folks to walk in their passion. And y'all are just,
I love it.
I love y'all, man. It's got the big picture learning and big picture schools, because there's something that's happening in those institutions that fosters this type of genius.
Right.
Like, how do they operate in that way? Well, go find out where they went to school at and see what their model is like. Don't marvel at the magic. Interrogate where the magic is happening, support that, and replicate that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep it really quick. It ain't that much of a secret. As long as you have somebody there who's gonna believe in you, as long as a child has somebody in their corner, some adult that believes that they can be something beautiful and amazing, that's all you need. Because really, it's not that hard with students and with young kids. Because starting from a young age, as long as they have somebody who they know believes in them and knows they can do something amazing, it's over from there. It's really all it is. And unfortunately, not enough of our kids are getting that. So honestly, there's no secret sauce. There's no secret recipe to it. We just have mentors and teachers that believe in us and who fuel us to go further.
And centering you, right? And centering you and putting you front and center. We're running out of time of this beautiful conversation. I wondered if there's anything that, if we could offer Biden some thoughts about what education needs, or maybe what it doesn't need, because Naseem, you started off with saying standardized testing. I wonder if we want to just toss in some ideas. It could just be phrases. I'll start off, so less testing, less answers, more love, more questions. What does education need? What are we recommending?
Yo, Eunice, I love this so much. Let's turn it into a practical game. So what we're gonna do is we'll say more and say something, and then we're gonna say less and something else. And we can freestyle. You know what I mean? Like true cipher.
Let's do it.
I would say more love, less ignorance.
I'll jump in. I'll say more real world stuff, less sitting at a desk and doing pamphlets at a computer at this point.
I have to say more building our students up and less boiling them down.
Oof.
More real education and less colonized education.
I would say more freedom and less standardization.
Wow, y'all killing me right now. More fun and less, the opposite would be boredom, but disengagement.
I'm gonna have to say more right to self-expression and less boxing in students.
That part.
Is it brewing, Naseem? Is it brewing?
You gotta let it simmer a little bit.
You gotta let it simmer. You know what I mean? Like, gotta let it percolate.
Ooh.
All right, we ain't gonna put them on the spot on the site, but you gotta support the MCs if they.
Right, yeah.
You got it now?
Wait. More resources, less debate about where the resources are going.
Right.
There's more resources.
Yeah. See, that was rough to wait. That was rough to wait, my G. Sometimes you gotta let the ideas percolate. You know what I'm saying?
Give us some time. That's what we need. More time, right? Like
more time. And we out of time, right?
We are out of time. Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to, if there's any final shout outs, I want to, once again, I think Carlos might be jumping on with us, but want to thank, there he is. There's the man. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Naseem, Sofia. Thank you, Dr. Emdin. for joining this cipher, for being in this conversation, and for being activists. Even though maybe we don't feel like it, I'm certain that someone's getting something out of this conversation. So I appreciate all of you. And
I'd be remiss. I got to do a little book promo. So listen, I got this joint brewing. This book I'm working on, right? It's going to look a little bit prettier. But if you look right there, that says Ratchetdemic. So Ratchetdemic is my next book. It's dropping soon. It's available right now on pre-order, wherever you could cop books. So please pick up Ratchetdemic. I want to thank Los. I want to thank my hip hop ed family. Shout out to my brother Tim Jones, who just put out a really amazing book about prayer and possibilities and replenishment. Shout to Eunice, but shout to my man Nas, bro. And shout to my little sis Sofia, because y'all killed this.
Killed it.
And I can't wait to be in fellowship with you guys at some point in person also.
Y'all sitting here and listening to y'all, it was, you sit back and you're just smiling. Like I don't think I stopped smiling, y'all. Like, and then I'm over here on the chat, so just appreciate the conversation. Nas and Sofia have had the pleasure just vibing with y'all now for a while. We celebrate y'all. We're here for y'all, and obviously all of our big picture students and family. So thank you all for carrying on that conversation in a way that I needed to, and just in a real authentic way. Before we close out, y'all, just like there was an entire team behind this, right? Like you saw a handful of us on the screen, but a shout out to my colleagues, and I don't want to miss anyone, but I need to name names. Shout out to the number of folks that are manning the various platforms. Carla Cruz Godoy, Anna Pirog, my brother and co-conspirator and producer in this joint, like Chris Jackson, my co-ED Andrew Frischman, who was a thought partner when I was telling him like where I wanted to go, and he was just like, he gave me some good stuff. Shout out to Elliot Washer, co-founder, Godfather, who was a thought partner, and countless other folks who throughout were just like offering to make this happen. Like it took a village to make it. And then last but not least, huge shout out to our friends at the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation for their support to make this happen, right? Like, and the Amplify community. This doesn't happen without their not just their generous support, but like Corey Scholes, I know you're out there. Thank you for your belief in us and for making this happen.
That's my sis.
Shout to Corey, as a true partner in what this can look like. So thank y'all. And blessings to everyone, man. Have a beautiful weekend. Stay safe. Peace.
Peace.